Somebody on a dialysis machine in a cave didn't have NORAD stand down, didn't do war games of flying planes in the buildings that morning, didn't do CIA insider trading, didn't call Mayor Willie Brown and tell him not to fly, and Ashcroft and everybody else.
What really happened on September 11th when 3,000 citizens were sent into heaven? Why the air of fake Bin Laden video confession? Why's the fairy tale version got so many questions? We're radical hijackers that were only using box cutters sliced up pilots like a knife cutting hot butter. They had us frantic like a NASDAQ stock runner. They flew in planes like a Tom Cruise top gunner. But the story's bogus, I noticed. Dick Cheney ran 9/11 drinking Diet Sprite sodas. You only gotta look at how the buildings collapse. Bombs popping off, listen, cause the building effects. A controlled demolition had a molten pool of steel up at ground zero. That's the temperature to drown heroes. Fires in the buildings that were oxygen starved. People waving from the windows where the bombing had scarred. So let me get this straight. These fires couldn't melt people of glass, but they can melt 47 steel frames. World Trade 7 wasn't hit by a plane. At 5 p.m. collapsed and they couldn't explain. Now for the third time in history, a steel building melted in a neat little pile. Had it happen, such a mystery. The owners said pull it and admitted they knew. That's Larry Silverstein, the partner with the Blackstone Group. They got the act all cool and made $6 billion stacking blood money dripping off of necktie collars. The South Tower burned for like 48 minutes, while the buildings in Madrid burned for 28 hours, shooting white hot flames, but they never collapsed. Ask your scientist professor, make him try and explain that. Or just watch the videos with concrete shooting out the blast point. You hear explosions at the flash point. C4 hit him like an asteroid. Planning a controlled demolition. Got a question you can ask Roy. You got a question you can ask Roy.
What you believe doesn't necessarily make it so. And so people say, well, how dare you, change my reality on 9/11. I don't want to believe it. Well, regardless of what you believe, the facts are still the facts. Let me just say this.
Yo, for real, why was Dick Cheney running hijacking drills? And why has George Shultz got a mind that can kill? And why they steal the footage when a missile hit the Pentagon? Why the stage terror like in Beirut, Lebanon? Why is it the Lord never trying to intercept? Why would Rumsfeld stand out, order so direct? Really, why was 9/11 such an inside job? Well, because the facts make it easy to solve. So the project for the new American century said we need a mobilizer with a new Pearl Harbor. Yeah, we got him by the chains, but we need to pull harder in a cashless society, control grid slaughter. So 3,000 citizens were martyred. The military budget seen jumping like a young Vince Carter. 9/11's really just a starter. They planted more terrorism all the way from here to Jakarta. And after the fact, they passed the Patriot Act. They left the Constitution murder with a stake in its back, cause they had to get a stake in Iraq. Bechtel, Raytheon, Dicor, and the Halliburton contracts. Children get abducted like alien contact. In Abu Ghraib prison during military combat. Cheney's that man saying bomb that. I'm that vice president that played possum like a wombat. He stole the plan out of Operation Northwoods. Him and Scooter Libby burned crosses and they sport hoods. Peter Schumacher in a shadow government are running martial law takeover drills out of Fort Hood. See, they import goods, CIA running crack. Teenagers popping more Viking than Laura Bush. Deficit, they run it up. 3 trillion missing from the Pentagon budget. The water supply drugging it. Why you think they loving it, loving it? Got a system where the terrorism happens cause the CIA funded it. Abu Musab al-Zarqawi's just a one-legged shield. Bin Laden's already been killed. Just false flag, mind control, synthetic terrorism. Comic book villains, now Americans are scared of living blind to the 9/11 inside job. It's Roy Shivers to the truth like religion to God.
Face the facts. There's no debating it. All the evidence points toward David Ray Griffin's fourth scenario, government total involvement. That is a criminal element within the government. That doesn't mean your mailman was involved, or the cop was involved, or your cousin whose FBI was involved.
Yo, for real, why was
Greetings, my fellow human beings. We are live. This is Live Free or Die. And this is 9/11 was an inside job part 2. If you don't believe it... All right, today I got plenty of good clips I want to show you. I want to enlighten you. I want to, let's just get it started. 9/11 was an inside job. This is in honor and memory of our fallen heroes, 343 firefighters, 23 police officers, all our KIAs. POW flag is up. Brandon Robb, Bo Bird Dog, Bradley Manning, we honor you, and all the veterans that have been put in the psych wards via the NDAA Act, Obama. Yeah, we'll talk about him a little bit later. Let's get to some 9/11 truth clips to enlighten your mind, okay? Let's do this.
If you were told it was something else, you wouldn't believe it, would you? This is called visual identification based on experience. This building is about to be destroyed in what is called a controlled demolition. Buildings do not do this spontaneously. Here is another example of a controlled demolition. The initial charges are spaced about 1 second apart. And you can see that each section begins falling separately. Successful demolitions require that all structural support columns collapse at virtually the same time. If they don't, or if something else goes wrong, the result will look something like this. This is World Trade Center 7 just before it collapsed on September the 11th, 2001. It had not been hit by an aircraft. It had been damaged by falling debris and fire. But by 5:20 p.m. most of the fires have been extinguished. Although the building was 47 stories high, it doesn't fall sideways, nor collapse unevenly. For this to have happened, all of the building's vertical supports must have given way at almost exactly the same time. Yet the Federal Emergency Management Agency reported that the collapse was due primarily to fire. But what does it look like to you? As at July 2007, there is no final report on the collapse of World Trade Center 7, but the National Institute of Standards and Technology still rules out a controlled demolition. So the question is, do you believe what you can see with your own eyes, or do you believe what you are told?
To be honest with you, we arrived on late Monday night and went into action on Tuesday morning. And not until today did we get a full opportunity to work.
All right, I just want to pause that. This is a FEMA guy. He says he arrived at Lower Manhattan at the World Trade Center the night before 9/11, okay? Let's just go back to it.
To be honest with you, we arrived on late Monday night and went into action on Tuesday morning. And not until today did we get a full opportunity to work the entire site other than the spot at Church and Day to which we were deployed. But to be honest with you, we arrived on late Monday night and went into action on Tuesday morning. But to be honest with you, we arrived on late Monday night and went into action on Tuesday morning. The Chief of Safety of the Fire Department of New York City told me he received word of the possibility of a secondary device, that is another bomb going off. He tried to get his men out as quickly as he could, but he said that there was another explosion which took place. And according to his theory, he thinks that there were actually devices that were planted in the building.
45 minutes into the taping that we were doing, there was an explosion. It was way up where the fire was, and the whole building at that point bellied out in flames, and everybody ran. I was about 5 blocks away when I heard explosions, 3 thuds, and turned around to see the building we just got out of, antenna tip over and fall in on itself. And then all of a sudden it started like it sounded like gunfire, you know, bang, 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 and then all of a sudden 3 big explosions.
When you figure this thing out, you'll realize that the men who committed this atrocity in New York on September 11th, 2001, mass murdered more people than the...
All right, next clip. NIST.
What happened? There was an explosion. We was in the lobby and the third explosion, the whole lobby collapsed on us.
What was it like? What was it like?
Horrible, horrible. The whole building just collapsed on us. inside the lobby.
Was that a secondary explosion?
Yes, it was.
That was
Yeah, definitely a secondary explosion. Because we was inside waiting to go upstairs, and on the way upstairs, the whole fucking thing blew. And we just collapsed on everybody inside the lobby.
similar to the first tower coming down, secondary.
I don't know about the first one, but I know the second one it was terrible. Then there was a third one too after that one. That's right. Everybody was inside the building, waiting to go upstairs, and they just let loose. Everything just let loose inside the building.
So what you tell me is that there was plane or whatever hit the building, but in the secondary explosion.
There was like 3 explosions after that. We came in after the fire. We came when the fire was going on already. We was in the staging area inside the building, waiting to go upstairs. Then it exploded. Then the whole lobby collapsed on the lobby inside.
And this mayhem after that?
Just man, everybody tried to make their way out. A lot of people trapped inside and everything.
Navy Yard across from Brooklyn. We watched the first explosion. As we're watching the buildings, I saw a black, very large airplane fly right into the second building. Came out of the south, right in front of our eyes. Just, it was so surreal, like a movie set. We were in the building for the third one collapse, and I was on this drive here for the other one.
People don't understand. There may be more. Any one of these fucking buildings can blow up. This ain't done yet.
This is on top of this. This couldn't be no worse than this. Couldn't be nothing no more worse than this. You're in the building trying to help people, and it's exploding on you inside the building. So I don't think it could get any worse than this.
This is Building 7, a 47-story skyscraper that fell on the afternoon of September 11th.
The government says that fire brought it down. However, 1,500 architects and engineers concluded it was a controlled demolition.
Over 6,000 of my fellow service members have given their lives.
And thousands of my fellow first responders are dying.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
I'm a structural engineer.
I'm a New York City correction officer.
I'm an Air Force pilot.
I'm a father who lost his son.
We're Americans, and we deserve the truth.
Go to rememberbuilding7.org today.
Next clip.
On the morning of September 11th, 2001, 19 men armed with box cutters, directed by a man on dialysis in a cave fortress halfway around the world using a satellite phone and a laptop, directed the most sophisticated penetration of the most heavily defended airspace in the world, overpowering the passengers and the military combat-trained pilots on 4 commercial aircraft before flying those planes wildly off course for over an hour without being molested by a single fighter interceptor. These 19 hijackers, devout religious fundamentalists who like to drink alcohol, snort cocaine, and live with pink-haired strippers, managed to knock down 3 buildings with 2 planes in New York. While in Washington, a pilot who couldn't handle a single-engine Cessna was able to fly a 757 in an 8,000-foot descending 270-degree corkscrew turn to come exactly level with the ground, hitting the Pentagon in the Budget Analyst Office where DoD staffers were working on the mystery of the $2.3 trillion that Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld had announced missing from the Pentagon's coffers in a press conference the day before, on September 10th, 2001. Luckily, the news anchors knew who did it within minutes.
Osama bin Laden.
The pundits knew within hours.
Osama bin Laden.
The administration knew within the day.
Terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbored them.
And the evidence literally fell into the FBI's lap.
That a hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
But for some reason, a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists demanded an investigation into the greatest attack on American soil in history. That investigation was delayed, underfunded, set up to fail, a conflict of interest, and a cover-up from start to finish. It was based on testimony extracted through torture, the records of which were destroyed. It failed to mention the existence of WTC-7, Able Danger, P-TECH, Sibel Edmonds, OBL and the CIA, and the drills of hijacked aircraft being flown into buildings that were being simulated at the precise same time that those events were actually happening. It was lied to by the Pentagon, the CIA, the Bush administration, and as for Bush and Cheney, well, no one knows what they told it because they testified in secret, off the record, not under oath, and behind closed doors. It didn't bother to look at who funded the attacks because that question is ultimately of little practical significance. Still, the 9/11 Commission did brilliantly, answering all of the questions the public had, except most of the victims' family members' questions, and pinned blame on all the people responsible, although no one so much as lost their job, determining the attacks were
failure of imagination.
Because
nobody in our government, at least, and I don't think the prior government that could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
Except the Pentagon, FEMA, NORAD, and the NRO. The DIA destroyed 2.5 terabytes of data on Able Danger, but that's okay because it probably wasn't important. The SEC destroyed their records on the investigation into the insider trading before the attacks, but that's okay because destroying the records of the largest investigation in SEC history is just part of routine record keeping. NIST has classified the data that they used for their model of WTC7's collapse, but that's okay because knowing how they made their model of the collapse would jeopardize public safety. The FBI has argued that all material related to their investigation of 9/11 should be kept secret from the public, but that's okay because the FBI probably has nothing to hide. This man never existed, nor is anything he had to say worthy of your attention, and if you say otherwise, you are a paranoid conspiracy theorist and deserve to be shunned by all of humanity. Likewise him, and her. And her, and her, and him. Osama bin Laden lived in a cave fortress in the hills of Afghanistan, but somehow got away. Then he was hiding out in Tora Bora, but somehow got away. Then he lived in Abbottabad for years, taunting the most comprehensive intelligence dragnet employing the most sophisticated technology in the history of the world for a decade, releasing video after video with complete impunity and getting younger and younger as he did so, before finally being found in a daring SEAL team raid which wasn't recorded on video, in which he didn't resist or use his wife as a human shield, and in which these crack special forces operatives panicked and killed this unarmed man, supposedly the best source of intelligence about those dastardly terrorists on the entire planet. Then they dumped his body in the ocean before telling anyone about it. Then a couple dozen of that team's members died in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan. This is the story of 9/11, brought to you by the media which told you the hard truths about
his head could be seen to move violently forward.
And
they took the babies out of the incubators.
And
mobile production facilities.
And
the rescue of Jessica Lynch.
If you have any questions about this story, you are a batshit paranoid tinfoil dog-abusing baby hater and will be reviled by everyone. If you love your country and or freedom, happiness, rainbows, rock and roll, puppy dogs, apple pie, and your grandma, you will never ever express doubts about any part of this story to anyone. Ever. This has been a public service announcement by the Friends of the FBI, CIA, NSA, DIA, SEC, MSM, White House, NIST, and the 9/11 Commission. Because ignorance is strength.
Well, there you have it. Now I want to go on to this next clip by AE 9/11 Truth. You can get this 9/11 exposed on YouTube. Get it on my channel. This is all for all the disbelievers, okay? I understand what you're going through. You're saying, I just can't believe this. Well, here they're going to break it down. Psychologists are going to break it down for you, okay? Let's go to the clip.
Most of us who have lived with the events of 9/11 have, as a result, experienced some kind of trauma. It can be very difficult to come to terms with what actually happened at the World Trade Center. In fact, someone told me recently, "I wouldn't believe what you're telling me even if it were true." Our petition signers with psychological expertise have stepped forward to offer their insight. While this segment is clearly outside the knowledge base of the architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, these experts in psychology highlight their valuable experience for us as to why this evidence can still be so difficult for people to accept.
As we know, the horrors of what happened on 9/11 were televised all over the world, and they were televised, in fact, live. We witnessed the deaths of almost 3,000 of our fellow Americans. We know this had a very severe and traumatic impact on a large majority of the population. At this point, we have 9 years of hard scientific evidence that disproves the government theory about what happened on September 11th, and yet people continue to be either oblivious to the fact that this information exists or completely resistant to looking at this information. So the question becomes why? Why is it that people have so much trouble hearing this information? From my work, I think we would be remiss not to look at the impact of trauma.
Many people respond to these truths in a very deep way. Some have a visceral reaction like they've been punched in the stomach. To begin to accept the possibility that the government was involved is like opening Pandora's box. If you open the lid and peek in a little bit, it's going to challenge some of your fundamental beliefs about the world.
If we can think of our worldview as being sort of our mental and emotional home,
I think all of us will do just about anything to defend our homes, to defend our families, and so I see that with people, and I saw that with myself when my brother tried to talk with me about it, of don't mess with me, don't mess with my home, don't mess with my comfort with how things are. About a week later, I read a lengthy article by Professor Griffin about why he believes the official account of 9/11 cannot be true. And it was a very well-researched article. It was in my office at the time. I sat there and I felt my stomach churning. I thought maybe I was going to be sick. And I leaped out of my chair and ran out the door and took a long walk around the block, around several blocks, and just broke down. I understand now that what was happening was my worldview about my government being in some way my protector, almost like a parent, had been dashed, and it was like being cast out into the wilderness, I think is the closest way to describe that feeling. And I sobbed, felt like the ground had completely disappeared beneath my feet, and I knew at some point during the walk that I knew that I was going to have to become active in educating other people about this, that for me to retain any sense of integrity, I was going to have to take some action. I couldn't just let something like this go.
When we hear information that contradicts our worldview, social psychologists call the resulting insecurity cognitive dissonance. For example, with 9/11, we have one cognition, which is what the official story of 9/11, what our government told us, what our media repeated to us over and over, that 19 Muslims attacked us. On the other hand, we have what scientists, researchers, architects, engineers are now beginning to tell us, which is that there is evidence that shows that the official story cannot be true. So now we've lost our sense of security. We are starting to feel vulnerable. Now we're confused.
9/11 truth challenges the beliefs that our country protects us and keeps us safe, and that America is the good guy. When your beliefs are challenged, fear and anxiety are created. In response to that, our psychological defenses kick in, and they protect us from these emotions. Denial, which is probably the most primitive psychological defense, is the one most likely to kick in when our beliefs are challenged.
And it's a very, very uncomfortable state to be in. And eventually our mind shuts off. Just like when a computer is overloaded, our minds get overloaded. We can't handle it anymore and we shut down.
And what some of us will tend to do is deny the evidence that's coming our way and stick to the original story, the official story, and to try to regain our equilibrium in that way. Another thing we can do is decide to look at the conflicting evidence and be sincere and be open-minded and look at both sides of the issue and then make up our own mind about what reality is. Here are a few of those spontaneous initial reactions to hearing the contradictory evidence about 9/11.
I don't want to know the truth, or I'd become too negative and psychologically go downhill. I'm not sure I want to know. If this is true, then up would be down and down would be up. My life would never be the same.
Fran, I refuse to believe that many Americans could be that satanically treasonous. Someone would have talked. But these are beliefs. They are not scientific facts. But these beliefs do keep us from looking at the empirical evidence. Whenever we say, I refuse to believe, we can be sure that the evidence that's coming our way is not bearable and that it's conflicting with our worldview much too much. As I thought about all of these responses, I realized that what is common to every one of them is the emotion of fear. People are afraid of being ostracized, they're afraid of being alienated, they're afraid of being shunned, they're afraid of their lives being inconvenienced, they'd have to change their lives, they're afraid of being confused, they're afraid of psychological deterioration, they're afraid of feeling helpless and vulnerable. and they're afraid that they won't be able to handle the feelings that are coming up. None of us want to feel helpless and vulnerable.
Healing comes through facing the truth, experiencing it, allowing the feelings to come in, so that if there are feelings of fear that perhaps these events were caused by something that we haven't thought about yet, dark elements within our society, for example, we'll let that come in and explore it. Let the light shine on whatever happened. This will be the most healing process.
After World War II, part of the way that Jewish people honored the dead was by making sure that the truth was known and that the value of these people was respected. Not pursuing the truth about 9/11 disrespects the value of the life of the people that died. Thinking that we're above such things, that it could happen in other countries, but it couldn't happen here, that's a lack of humility, and that's excessive pride. And so not being able to see our dark side or our weaknesses is the most dangerous thing.
A feature of American history that makes us particularly liable to this pride is this notion that's called exceptionalism, that America is the exceptional nation. And that began from the beginning. As this country was formed, the people would say, well, there was so much evil in the European country, so much cheating, so much lying, so much...
All right, well, there you have that version of
using the...
If you disbelieve, there you go. There's my reason for you to believe. All right, we're almost out of time. I want to touch on this last article. U.S. ambassador killed by Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda that was put in by Obama. The chickens have come home to roost. And I mourn for these people. I mourn for the 2 Navy SEALs who died because Obama decided to put Al-Qaeda in charge, okay? So screw you, Obama. All right, show's over. God bless America. God save the Constitution. And if you have received this transmission, then you are the resistance.
He crawls guard selling airline stocks. Why does Bush's brain start where his hairline stops? Why do Pentagon officials all cancel their flights? Why does fluoridated water cause cancer in mice? Why would World Trade 7 all of a sudden collapse? Why was Dick Cheney planning for a war in Iraq? Really, why was 9/11 such an inside job? Well, because the facts make it easy to solve. Muhammad Atta trained as a spy up in Cali with the Able Danger program in the Monterey Valley. Then he